Welcome back to Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia. I'm joined, as always, by WEEI.com expert Patriots columnist Christopher Price. The Patriots win their preseason home opener and improve to 2-0, 25-21 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The big story coming in with Tom Brady play, and if so, how much? He was great again. He was 11 of 12. He had almost a perfect quarterback rating, 107 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He's 18 of 20 in the preseason so far. He's been brilliant, Chris.
I will say this. I don't think we're talking about this enough. And I'm as guilty as the next guy with not talking about it, not writing about it. Brady is having a fantastic summer, especially considering the guys that he has to work with here. All these new receivers, relatively new elements in the passing game. All of this is coming together very nicely for him. He didn't seem to be an issue tonight. He was crisp, he was efficient. The 2 drives he was able to put together, he was able to overcome some bad penalties on the first drive. Right. Penalties from the offensive line weren't a problem at all down the road. He looked very sharp, he looked very crisp. It was a great outing for the quarterback.
And Chris, I'll tell you one guy that is really glad that he did decide to play and wasn't seriously injured on Wednesday, Danny Amendola. Patriots and their fans got a really good up-close and personal look at what this guy can do, number 80. Will he be able to replace Wes Welker? Time will tell, but in that first drive by Brady, 4 catches, 46 yards, including the 26-yard touchdown catch on a double post.
He really had a great night. And again, this is what you're looking for, because we talked about Brady's performance over the course of the summer. Amendola has been far and away the best wide receiver. Now, we've seen a lot from the rookies and the young guys, Kenbrell Tompkins and Zach Sudfeld, who also had a very good night tonight. But this offense, this passing game, is going to go as far as Amendola can take it. Amendola is going to be the #1 receiver in this offense if he's healthy, and that's a big if at this point, given his history. He's going to catch north of 80 balls. So I think what we saw tonight, for Patriots fans anyway, they hope it's a precursor to what we're going to see over the course of the regular season.
Let's stick with the first half and some other highlights on the defensive side of the ball. Very, very impressed with the pass rush in particular. That would be Brandon Spikes. What's interesting about this is everybody knows Brandon Spikes is a beast in terms of run stopper. But what we saw tonight were 2 first-quarter sacks from Brandon Spikes. Maybe a little bit to do with the pass coverage and the great coverage in the Patriots secondary, but still, Brandon Spikes getting to the quarterback, that's not something you see a lot.
That's not an element of his game that we've seen over the course of his few years here in New England. This is a key preseason for Spikes because he's going into a contract year. If he can prove that he can be more than just a 2-down linebacker, I think he could be in line for a very big payday. Now, the 2 sacks, like you said, they were coverage sacks. It wasn't quite a product of him rushing the quarterback in a traditional pass rushing setting, but still, 2 sacks and 2 sacks. They're pretty impressive. He had a very good night. I think this sets up to be a very interesting year for number 55 in the middle.
Ryan Mallett, 12 of 20, I believe it was, for a $127. He had a touchdown thanks to almost a circus catch by Zach Sudfeld. But talk about Ryan Mallett tonight and what you were impressed with as the game went along for number 15.
I think he displayed a nice consistency more often than not. This wasn't the kind of performance that I think will quiet his critics ultimately, but it was an improvement on what he displayed the first week of the preseason. And if he can keep stacking success, as they say, I think he could go along with this. Again, this is a huge preseason for him because not just for him and his overall professional development, but if he does well this preseason, there are a lot of guys out there. There's a lot of folks around the league who are looking at him. And in this quarterback-starved league, a guy like Ryan Mallett, I think, playing well, playing like he did at times tonight, could bring a second-round pick.
Need to end on a downer, but we obviously have to talk about the performance of number 5, Tim Tebow. 1 for 6, I believe it was, an interception. He played most of the game with a 0.0 quarterback rating. It was rough. The Patriots knew what they were getting when they signed him back in early June. This is not a surprise. Tebow said in the locker room that sometimes they're going to ask me to do things maybe that I'm not used to doing, but I have to learn as part of the offense that I'm in here in New England. Your thoughts on Tim and where you go from game number 2?
He struggled tonight. He clearly struggled tonight. It was a bad situation. The airmail ball that he threw over Kenbrell Tompkins' head was an ugly, ugly pass.
For the pick.
Exactly, the pick. I think that there's something to the idea that they have basically broken down Tim Tebow and are trying to build him up again. They are trying to break him down mechanically, and you're going to get nights like this. I still have him on my roster. I think he's going to make the roster. I still have him as number 53 on the 53-man roster. For what
I do as well, for what it's worth.
It is. It's going to be interesting, though, over these next couple of weeks. I don't think he's going to play a lot in the next preseason. But I think that fourth preseason game is going to tell us a lot. I think he's going to survive the first round of cuts. But I think that fourth game is going to be really interesting to see where he is. Again, I've said this all along, it's a value-based judgment with Tim Tebow. You can either have a third quarterback or you can have an extra offensive lineman, an extra defensive back, an extra wide receiver, whatever. Or does he provide enough value for you as a third quarterback who can run the read option, and maybe you have a 15-play package in there, and you put the fear in other teams' minds that Tebow is on the roster, he could run the read option. We have to take time to focus on that and prepare for something like that. So again, ultimately it's a question of value when you're talking about number 5 on this offense.
All right, Chris, the Patriots improved to 2-0 with a 25-21 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No more joint practices that the Patriots have to do. Training camp is officially over, but Bill Belichick reminded everybody in the press conference afterwards that training camp is not over in his mind. The Patriots continue the preseason next Thursday in Detroit before wrapping up the next week after that against the Giants here at Gillette Stadium. For Christopher Price, I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.